this. And welcome, gentlemen, to the American Civil War Zoom meet number. I think this is about number 9 or 8.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so for the new members, typically we do a little check-in sometimes, just to see where people are at and with regarding specific projects they might be working on. Um, some evenings we will do what I would call a presentation, where one member has taken a particular topic and done some research and shared a PowerPoint of that work, whether it's locomotives or structures or what have you. Or we will do like a modeling segment, where last week and the week before members were showing the prototype rolling stock that they have built. And it's great because you get not only the tips and the techniques and whatnot, but it's also a little bit of an energy boost, a little inspiration to like keep us on track with all the little projects that we got going on, especially since we can't really meet together. So that pretty much covers like the gestalt of this. For some of you, most of you, I think, have probably been on Zoom calls. So just a couple of ground rules for the new guys is if you feel like there's going to be any background noise with you, just put yourself on mute. If you want to make a comment or whatnot, sometimes it's better if you just raise your hand and I'll call on you, because when you talk over someone else, it kind of cuts out their voice. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. Although we have a flow with this, I'm not stuck to any particular time frame. I just want to make sure you guys have some fun, learn some things, and that's pretty much it. So I thought what we would do is let some of the new faces introduce themselves, like what's your connection with the Civil War railroads, historical or otherwise, and where do you live, and maybe a current project that you're working on. So each of you could take a couple of minutes if you need, just introduce yourself, and we'll start with Paul Harbert.
All right. I'm actually an O-scaler, and I also dabble in O&30, hence the T-shirt. I'm part of those crazies. Normally I'm a transition era model railroader in O-scale, so 40s, 50s. But I've always had an interest in the Civil War since, well, growing up as a kid in the 60s. It was all around us, the movies and everything. So I've always had an interest in it. And the first time I went down to see Tom's layout, I had my mind blown. And so I have an interest in Civil War railroading. I haven't built anything towards that end yet, but I plan on at some point.
And you're about what, an hour from me?
About an hour, yeah, I think, maybe a little more.
Right.
It depends on the traffic on the parkway.
Right. Well, welcome, Paul.
Yeah.
David.
Yes. I'm been, let's see, I live in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and I'm an HO modeler. Don't really have any project currently that I'm involved in, but I've always been interested in the Civil War, as Tom knows, and known Tom for a long time, probably about 50 years or more, but so we've had a mutual interest in the Civil War, and seeing Tom's layout is just was unbelievable to me, and so it's just rekindled my interest, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Dave's been here a few times already. Now that he's retired, and so we've had him working on the layout. We've had him doing some operation sessions with us. So it's great to have him back in the fold.
Great fun.
Let's see, Christopher.
Well, I also have known Tom for quite a long period of time, and my interest in the Civil War railroad layouts pretty much parallel his. because I've been working on his layout with him since its inception. Other than that, I'm not so much an HO modeler as I am a scale modeler. I also paint miniatures as a hobby. So I'm not so much railroad as I am on the modeling aspect or the diorama aspect of doing layouts.
Great. Yeah. So just to give you guys an idea, Christopher actually built the backdrop down the center, and for the layout. He's a master carpenter, and he brings those same skills to the structures that he's built, and he's built 3 for the layout. Yeah. So it's I tell you, between all these different guys that showed up in my life, starting back in like 2000, it's been a real blessing. Otherwise, this layout would still be on a bench, I think, somewhere.
Well, actually, yeah. After the bench work came in, Tom asked me that he wanted a radius backdrop in both corners and then a tall backdrop down the middle, so it was kind of T-shaped. But I did build the radius backdrops, and then also did the light soffit around the backdrop as well, and spent the first several years of weekends and being able to go there to work actually just doing carpentry. It's only been the last 6 years that I've had a chance to do like the fun stuff,
Right.
And do some buildings for the layout.
Right. Yeah, it's been good. So with that, thank you guys and welcome. Just by a show of hands, does anybody have anything around carloads they'd like to share? DC, Don, Dan, great. And I thought what we could do first is, anybody have anything you'd like to share with the group in terms of any updates with any projects you're working on, or anything you'd like us to know?
Could I just chime in?
Yep.
Yep. Since the article came out in the Model Railroader, we've had 8 new members join the group.
Wow.
Our online group?
For the online group, yes, sir. So it happens every once in a while. You'll get some every few months. You'll get somebody joining or someone dropping out.
Right.
But we have this little blip up in the curve. So
Cool.
thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I had a few new subscribers on the blog, but I got to get working on that. I haven't done crap with that thing in months, so I'll probably lose them pretty quick. So with that, anybody else? Yeah, David.
I wanted to bring the rest of the group up where I am on my home layout. I think I told you all about 2 months ago. I tore everything apart, started over again with bare plywood. I just wanted to give you a quick update, and I'm going to do it just by showing a photograph here. I'm going to put it up to my camera. And so this is a photograph of where things are on the layout right now. So this is beginning scene. We started doing that about 3 weeks ago. And this is one side of a backdrop, and here's the other side of the backdrop. So I model O-gauge. This is O-gauge 3-rail, and it's more representational of Civil War era, and I don't make any attempt to be a scale modeler. Although I love what scale modelers do, it's not my thing.
Great. Thank you, David. Anybody else?
Yeah, let me chime in real quick. I'm working on a passenger car project with our good friend Eric Cox, which means he's just blowing me away by some of the work he's working on. But he's got his own printer. Of course, this is an N-scale car, but I'll share photographs of it next week if he approves. However, I do have one thing to tell you, Tom. He said, "Great job on your layout," and he asked me to pass that on to you.
Oh, Eric did?
Yes.
Oh.
For those who don't know, Eric Cox has the Shapeway truck store that has virtually any Civil War era truck you want ready printed. So Eric sends his regards on that. Okay, I'm trying to talk him to joining with this group, but I think he's afraid people would start taking advantage of it.
Oh, well, you know what? Tell him if he wants, we'll all sign a document or a waiver that will prevent that from happening.
I won't.
He's actually a member of the online group.
Yes, he is. It's just coming into this forum.
Right. I get it. Oh God. Well, we'll have to invite him sometime when Rhett's not available. That's all.
Yeah.
I'll just hold up the cat with a gun to its head and say either get that or the cat gets it.
I love it. Okay. Any other sharing? Any other updates, gentlemen?
I had a question.
Yeah.
One of these always fascinated me is strap rail, and I knew there was some, but from photos, there was quite a bit still in the Civil War. And I've always thought I'd be cool to model. I've never had the guts to do it. But is there anybody who's actually modeled wooden rails with the strap on top?
I did it a very small amount. It's actually quite easy. You can buy flat brass and just about the right size and just lay that over wood stringers.
Right.
And over I don't know what you call it that's underneath the strap, but it's wood also.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Why were you considering doing that, Walter?
Yeah, I wouldn't do a whole layout like that, but at least a piece of it just
Yeah.
for like historical reference.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the UK, because there are a number of modelers in the UK who have done the, I don't know if you know, the Great Western Railway was 7-foot gauge, and they laid strap rails early on along balks. And there have been a number of modelers in the UK who have recreated that, and they may have some guides or some blogs or something like that that would give you a few tips.
Okay. All
There are
right.
a lot of accounts of travel on the early railroads, especially in the South in the U.S., of snakeheads coming up through the bottoms of passenger cars and impaling people.
Yeah.
So it was not an uncommon thing, because the trains would wear out the nail heads holding the strap to the timber portion of the rail, and they just come up and go through the bottom of the car.
Hello. Right. So, all right, then let's see. Who would be ready to present? I guess we have Don, DC, and who else?
I put a list together from some other sources.
Okay. Cool. So, Don, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. All right. I modeled the 1890s, and so the cars you see will be that, but the loads are ones that would be pretty typical of any era. Like here's lumber.
Right.
And it was kind of interesting to make this stuff because it can, you have to have a table saw, and you saw thin strips, you glue them together, and you saw them the other way, and you end up with a bunch of what looks like random pieces put together. It's a fairly long process, and I'm not sure I get out of it what I had hoped, but at least it looks like loose pieces of lumber, which it really isn't.
You know, what's great about that look, Don, is the rawness of the cuts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looks like they just came out of a mill. Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Very good.
They would build with the lumber like that.
Right.
And that was a big commodity during, well, all of railroads used, was hauling building materials to various places. Now, something else was, in this case, grain. And a lot of times it was just, you know, sacks of grain or sacks of anything were just piled on flat cars instead of putting them in box cars, and they were hauled like that.
How did you make those?
Well, what I did was I took pieces of clay And I had a central core of a block of wood in here, and then I had flattened out the clay and cut little bag-sized pieces and just stacked them up, made a silicon rubber mold, and then these are cast in resin.
Wow.
Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, they're removable, so it's just kind of nice because once you get where the grain is going, you can take them off. Now you've got the empties to take back to get some more.
Right. That's cool.
Farm implements. These are supposed to be farming tools, basically right from the manufacturer. I have a manufacturer of such things on my railroad, and so these are some of the products they're manufacturing. Again, it's just a regular flat car. I put some chains through it to hold them down, and some wood blocking so they don't fall off. And everything is glued in place. So I don't have an empty out of this car. But then I've got cars like this, which are numbered the same. And just look like the load's been taken off and they left the scrap on there. So when it gets where it's going, I just, between operating sessions, I swap the empty car for the full one and take it back and do it all over again the next time.
Right. Who makes the farm implements that you had on there?
Oh, now I got to remember. I think that was all SS Limited stuff.
Tom, those are
Yeah.
diskers. They're
Yeah.
run through the field after it's been plowed to level off everything before they seed.
Got it.
Well, fire
boy.
Fire trucks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, there's a picture of Atlanta taken by Barnard
Yeah.
showing a bunch of fire equipment on a flat car. It's in the background, but it's all there, and these would be suitable for Civil War era as well as modern. And the interesting thing about these kits is they come in a package I think I got this with a Conestoga wagon for like $7. And
Whoa,
then-
you got both engines and the wagon?
No, one engine and one wagon, which isn't shown, for $7.
Wow.
And then they're fairly crude, but if you take your time and you paint them up right, they don't look too bad.
They look great.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Who are they?
Don, are those the metal kits?
No, they're plastic.
These are plastic. Okay.
Now, very simple ones.
Do you
Who are
remember
they?
the brand or the manufacturer on that one?
I don't. I can hang on just a second, and I can find out real quick because there was a lot of them, at least when I got these. And so let's see what we got here.
They look a lot like the Gould fire engine kit, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little nicer kit, the ones you're talking about, the Globe ones that was, shoot. Of course, they were all over,
It's all right.
last time I looked, but now they're not showing up, and but they are definitely, or they have been anyway, fairly commonplace.
Right.
So I keep afraid
Those crates are a nice touch, Don.
The what?
The crates.
Oh yeah, well that's all the hose connections and such.
Right. Yeah, that's something else about carloads. All the other little elements that you can put in there, like you just said, DC, with the crate, that would indicate that there's something else there as well.
Now these, of course, are
Appropriate.
road rollers, steam powered. And
Wow.
while you may not see this particular thing on in the 1860s, any large piece of equipment can be, would be moved on a flat car.
So unloading that, Don, I presume that would go like to a stub not a stub, but a, what do you call it? Ugh, a dead end
Either
turnout.
that, it could be unloaded on a loading platform, sideways. Obviously, there'd have to be a ramp from the loading platform down to the ground level. Or it could back in the stub inlet like you were talking about. And a lot of places kept temporary ramps at hand where they could just push it up there. Or lay some planks down and roll them down, either one. Or you could get into really heavy pieces of machinery. Now, the interesting thing is that Model Railroader published an article in 1960 on building this 4-truck flat car with this load. And somewhere, 30, 40 years later, I built the flat car, and the load is turned metal, so it gives a good weight to the car. Now you can get this same load from American Model Builders in resin.
So you scratch built that car to get the other trucks in there, or added them?
Yeah. The 2 trucks are on a plate that connect them together, and then the center of that plate is the swivel that attaches to the car.
Ah.
So.
Great.
And there's another one, half of a flywheel for some big engine. Now this is a fairly easy thing to do. I got the STL file for this. This was 3D printed on my printer, and I got the STL file from a website called Thingiverse. And you just download it for free, and I did that and loaded it into my printer and ended up with this. You have to make 2 of them, and then you glue them together to get the one thickness that you're looking at here. So it obviously still needs some tie downs on it or wood blocking or something.
Right.
But,
I'm surprised that I didn't realize they would have manufactured a half of a wheel.
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole thing is, look, suppose you manufacture the whole wheel, how are you going to move it?
Right.
And that's why they did them in sections.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was done a lot.
Now I've got another car, which I didn't show because they wouldn't have been using them that way, but they might have used it. It was a well car, and I have a complete gear on that extends through the bottom of the deck of the flat car and almost touches the rails. And that's to keep it down low enough to where it won't, it'll pass through tunnels and stuff like that.
Right.
And it works out, it's very nice. I've got a picture of the prototype, which was about 1873 or 4 when it was being used. So I copied it. But this would be suitable for any large company. Your rolling mill would probably have one about this big.
Right.
So
very cool.
Glories of 3D printing.
So the photo was the inspiration to do this?
Yeah. I had a photo and a newspaper article describing how it's built.
Neat.
So that's where that, in fact, if you want to wait just a second, I can probably come up with a picture of that one.
Are you gonna have 2 cars like that?
I could have, right now I only have the one flat car available, but I do have another half that I could be putting that up there. Let's see. There we go. Let me go share something else here for just a moment. Can you see that, or you still see the?
Still see the car with the wheel.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and open this other one for right now. Okay. This is the well car I was telling you about.
Right.
And on the very left, you can see the slot where the gear extends.
Yep.
The hardest part about all this was finding a gear. And that was small enough and had fine enough teeth that it would look right in HF scale. So anyway, let me get back to what I was doing here. And this is, again, is machinery. It's part of a big engine being used for something. And it being transported by flat car, taking up 2 flat cars. Here's the rest of the engine, and here's some of the pieces to put it together when you get to wherever it is you're going. And all this stuff on both of these cars is, again, made by American model builders. And it could be suitable for any era.
Hey, Don, on your flat cars, I noticed they're quite similar. The dark spots on the ends, are those holes for posts?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was quite common. They had stake pockets on one of the cross beams on the inside. So like if you were hauling firewood, you'd put stakes in each end and stack the firewood in, because it's like a bulkhead flat car.
Yep.
Yeah, these were kits that I made. I drew up a plan, and at the time I didn't have a laser cutter, so I had a friend of mine cut pieces for the deck and for the underside and everything. So all I had to do was assemble them every time I wanted a flat car. Had stake pockets and trucks and brake wheel, and pretty much got where you're going. It was early Central Pacific design from the late 1860s. So this would be right in, what we're talking about tonight.
Another question. I noticed the distance in the C and P is quite far in the R and the R. Is that prototype, or is that, I mean, what was the?
That's prototype, yeah.
Really?
It's just the way they did it.
Wow. Okay. Interesting that they didn't put it closer together. Interesting.
Yeah, you'd think they could have put it all between 2 sets of stake pockets, but they really didn't.
When they were doing this, one guy, I heard he was talking to the other guy, and he said, wait till you see what Tom's reaction is going to be to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's that one. And we're back where we started from. So that's
great.
That's what I've got there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Nice work as always, man.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Dan, what do you got?
Well, I just put a list together of loads, and day before yesterday, I believe it was, in the early rail group, which apologies to a couple of you who I know are members of it. Bob Chaparro made a list of all the loads that he had observed that had been put in stock cars alone, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I just thought I'd give you all a rundown, those of you who didn't see it. Clay pipe, bagged potatoes, ice, pulpwood, cabbage, corn cobs, dunnage bulkheads for boxcars, firewood, freight car wheels, grain and green doors, lumber, railroad ties, sewer lids, sugar beets, tile, tires, tomatoes, and watermelons.
Wow.
So those are just what he's been able in his time of checking stock car loads out to put together. And all of those would have been appropriate depending on your locale, except for maybe sewer covers. But it's just interesting, you know, the stock car being that versatile, something you don't think about. And then I got to thinking about maybe loads that are a little more out of the ordinary. Brick is pretty common. Straw and hay would have been sent at the time. If you're in a large urban center, if you're importing straw and hay into a city, there's a good chance you'd be exporting manure out of a city. Entire buildings have been loads on flat cars, smaller buildings that could be transported. Bones were sent in gondolas.
Did you say bones?
Bones. They had a commercial value. I focus on New Mexico in the 1880s, and it was quite common in Kansas where they were doing the big buffalo hunts to ship carloads of buffalo bones back to Chicago or the Midwest, wherever the bones were used. I presume it would have been maybe in fertilizer manufacture or something like that.
Yeah.
But wherever there's livestock and also, I suppose, slaughterhouses, there would have been bones as a byproduct. So that's another thing. A little bit later, maybe not in the 1860s, but large prefab wooden architectural details like doors and parapets and that sort of thing were shipped. And finally, whale oil. If you look at Wikipedia and you look at the article under whale oil, you will see that whale oil was hit its peak in the 1850s and was starting to tail off by the end of the Civil War. But the Civil War was before kerosene really got up and got started as a lighting oil. So whale oil in barrels would have been probably more in the north and the east than in the south, but it would have been one of the loads. And that naturally leads you to salt pork in barrels. And once you think about salt pork, you also think about hardtack, which would have been in crates. And then finally, hides, which were also a byproduct of abattoirs and slaughterhouses. And interestingly, hides were a very unwelcomed traffic because they basically, the smell ruined the boxcars that they were sent in. So the railroads didn't like to,
Talking about uncured hides.
Right, hides that were to be sent to tanneries for processing. So what the railroads would do would be they would use their most decrepit, oldest stock available. So it's a perfect way to get an 1840 boxcar onto an 1860 layout.
Right. That's great.
Tanneries were quite common. Most cities would have, and towns would have a tannery in them. So a lot of that was done at a local level. Though during the Civil War, especially with the need for leather, for belts, holsters, etc., the tanning industry began, I think, expanding rapidly at that time. So it could be justified.
In Alexandria on Union Street, the slaughterhouse was over the Potomac.
For good reason.
Oh, and a quick one too. Oil, they exported something like 500,000 barrels of oil during the Civil War in the peak year from Pennsylvania. That was, and that was transported in flat cars. I've got shots of the flat cars loaded with real barrels of oil. Down here in East Texas, Houston, there's a refinery right down the street from us. So they taught us all this stuff about oil long before they taught us about anything else.
To answer the business about loads for stock cars, I've got in my case, it's the 1870s Central Pacific. basically it tells you where to load stuff and how much it's going to cost and all that. But they specify loading kerosene and other flammables in stock cars only.
Hmm.
And
For the
that's where
ventilation.
barrels and tins leaked. And the stock car was open enough that would get rid of the fumes instead of capturing them inside. And, you know, leading to a possible explosion.
Makes sense.
Dan was talking about architectural detail parts. We've got a building in Columbus it's an iron facade, and the parts were shipped to Columbus in 1861. Unfortunately, the workmen that would assemble it were from up north, and so they returned north at that time, and the building was not assembled till after the war. But the parts were here and would have come in by rail.
That's amazing that they weren't recast and used for other purposes. That would have been probably a 6 or 7 year hiatus before people got back on their feet to do that.
Probably so.
So Dan, you know, you were mentioning how things were shipped in barrels and crates and everything. Does anybody know the size of what a hogshead referred to?
Yeah.
Yes,
What is it?
I'm going to have to look it up. I have the information, but I don't have it.
I got it in the table somewhere too, in the
Around
back
a
of a book.
50 gallon.
50 gallons?
No, more like 80. It was a big
Oh, really? Oh, so wait a minute, 80 gallons. There was no barrel that. Well, I guess there was a barrel that size, right?
Oh yeah. Then you
Oh,
have Treasure Island. You had what's his name hiding in the apple barrel listening
Oh,
to
right.
pot.
So a hogshead's about 80 gallons. Okay.
It's
Actually,
145 U.S. gallons. Tobacco hogshead.
It's 45.
Tobacco's hogshead is standard measured 48 inches long and 30 inches in diameter. Wikipedia is a terrible place to go.
Wonderful.
So it had at least 121 imperial or 145 U.S. gallon, depending on the barrel maker, bend in the middle.
The
So,
bend in the middle?
yeah, because the barrel goes out.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
if you go over to Jack Daniels, they have a demonstration showing the guy burning the barrels and driving the coops down. That's just the easiest one. I've seen it at lots of colonial villages where somebody's making barrels or buckets. But so it's a measurement standard because all that stuff had to be standard because you were ordering stuff in that.
So a hogshead would have been a liquid?
Hogshead is hogshead is a barrel.
As a measurement. Okay.
Measured
Size of barrel.
Size.
I just looked it up, and what I'm finding, at least Googling it, is a large cask of measured capacity for wine equal to 63 gallons or 238 liters, or a measure of capacity for beer equal to 64 gallons and 245 liters. So it looks like, depending upon what you put in it, it varied a little bit.
Oh, it does, because it's a product. It's product specific. Because the roller roads around Northern Virginia, those are the roads that they use to roll the barrels towards the wharfs.
Well, the whole thing with what we call barrels are really, it's kind of a generic term because you have the terms hogshead, then you had a barrel, which was a different size, smaller than a hogshead, and then you had and you had kegs and probably a couple others I can't remember. And depending on when you're selling beer, wine, or packing products like China or whatever in it, they were all sized differently. So it just
had a lot of different names too.
when you buy a collection of barrels, they come in all different sizes, you know.
I would automatically refer to Jerry on anything having to do with shipping.
What were you going to say, Jerry?
I just did some digital models of barrels and kegs for Chris Keonis and to go with Civil War era stuff. So I did some digging on what size they were. The 64 gallon hogshead, if you will, was a real common one, but then they had several smaller sizes. There was a barrel, there was a keg, there was a firkin, there was there was another one in there too, and they went all the way down to like 16 gallons. But they were all built pretty much the same way. They were built with curved staves that had a groove cut in near the ends for the top and the bottom of the barrel, and then they had most of the time there were 4 hoops on them, which were wrought iron.
Mm-hmm.
And the hoop sizes are what determined the size of the barrel, actually.
So the name of the barrel denoted the size, right? They didn't say I want a 20 gallon. They'd say you would want the hogshead, or you want a barrel, or you want a keg.
You want a hogshead or a barrel or a keg, or a there was another one too. Small one.
Firkin.
Yeah, firkin. That was an English one.
Firkin.
The interesting sidelight is one of the things that was shipped a lot in barrels was beer.
Yeah.
And it was shipped to the bars. And on the rounded part of the barrel, you had a hole where you filled the stuff with the beer. And then you put a plug in there called a bung. And you saw that off flush with the top of the barrel. Now you could roll the barrel to get it wherever it is you're going. Of course, once you got to the bar, the saloon, there's nothing to grab to open it up. And so every bar had a bung hammer, which is a very narrow head on it, not like a big mallet, but a very narrow one. And the idea is that it was just slightly less than a stave of the barrel. Now, liquid is incompressible, so if you whacked on a stave, then you try to compress it, and whatever's the loosest is going to fly out, i.e. the bung. And so now you could tap the barrel and serve your customers. And it was also good to keep under the bar in case people got a little unruly. You bring out the bung hammer. They're pretty good. I've got one downstairs of mine just in case.
Oh, okay.
The model railroaders get a little too.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you for that tip. That's good. Good. Well, thanks, guys. That was great, Dan. Appreciate that, man. So DC. Oh, yeah, John.
So speaking of barrels, one of the earliest railroad tank car designs that was unsuccessful for good reason, somebody had the idea that if you could roll a barrel across a floor of something or down a road, you could just take a great big barrel and roll it down railroad tracks. So this tank car consisted of 2 barrels, and from the picture, it looks like they're maybe 3-4 foot in diameter, with railroad wheel tires replacing the hoops at the ends, so that they gauge to the track, and a kind of a framework that held it together. So 2 of these things constituted a tank car, and they would roll down the track. Hey, what could be simpler than that?
Wow.
Apparently a half a dozen of them were actually built, and well, it was a bad idea on a whole lot of levels.
Right.
But there's a picture of it, I think, in John White's American Freight Car book. I'm not sure if that's where I.
Yes.
But really, it's pretty hysterical. It's hard to imagine how your product would have, what kind of shape it would have been in if it had rolled 50 miles down the railroad track to get there.
Been nice.
Well, if it needed to be mixed, you had no problem there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they ship gunpowder in barrels. Yeah.
Whoa.
You did.
Whoa.
The smaller ones.
Jeez. Good. Well, thank you. That was cool. Appreciate that. So, DC, up. What do you got to show us?
Okay. Last week, Rep showed us the fine job he did with the BTS kit and the lights and everything.
Right.
And I just thought it'd be interesting to see how with the same kit, you can take different approaches to it. So this is basically a BTS kit that I put together. I did not do the lights like Brett did. This is one side of the car. That's the other side. I went ahead, and to add weight to the car, I did a lot of interior detailing. And unfortunately, it's better in person than the photos I could take of it. So,
Great. Looks great.
yeah, it's got my dandruff all over it, but okay. What do you say?
Sorry, DC.
On one side, I put in
DC.
What trucks are those?
Those are Air Cox trucks.
Okay, there's no weight to them. Okay, understood.
No, and Reebok's wheels.
Okay.
Okay. So what I did was it's a little white metal casting of a car heater I had in my parts, coal hod and a shovel so that the conductor could take the shovel, go get the coal he needed for the stove for the trip. Looking at a different side, if you're going to be on a trip, you probably want to have water. I decided to go with a water keg, so I built this little kind of table inside. There's a bucket so the conductor can go get the water to fill up the top, and the top of the keg came open. You just dump your buckets of water in there. There's even a Colt a Navy revolver there in case you can use any rattlesnakes, copperheads, or other vermin. You can see the edge of the spittoon, of course. I have since touched up the handles.
Good.
I even built a little tin mug for inside on the table there. So other things I did. On the other side of the car, which is more storage and that type of thing, a couple of barrels, and we can debate on which one's a barrel and if one's a hogshead and one's a whatever, in a broom, but these are all white metal castings to add a little weight. It's just another close-up of it. You can't see it here, but I kind of detailed the chair. That's a standard, I'm sorry? Just the standard figure. And I got a little funky, and one end of the car, I built a bed, scratch built it out of styrene. The photo doesn't capture it, but it actually does have hospital corners on the bed. This is actually turned down. So,
is that a pillow?
The pillow on the bed, yeah, that's a pillow on the bed. So again, there's that's my interpretation of the BTS conductor's car.
Nice.
Where did you get the decals?
Nice.
I'm sorry?
Where did you get the decals?
The decals?
Yeah.
These are actually from a micro scale U.S. military freight car and passenger set.
Got any more?
Actually, somebody has them for sale on eBay right now. They have 3 sets left.
Oh.
I think they were asking $7.50 plus shipping per set.
Okay. I thought they were available still at Microtrains.
I think they are.
At Microscale.
They're not.
They're not?
No.
I've contacted them because all you have to do is usually order enough, and it's just a photograph that they do.
Oh, well.
And in other words, I just usually call them and say, will you make 20 cents? And then sell the rest of them.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah. They might have
because they regularly go out of stock. But somebody has to order some for them to decide to,
turn out a batch.
Pull the net to run another batch. The artwork is available. So
DC.
I pretty much like hang on to my sets for the numbers. I like the font and the fact they have the NO for number with the dot under the raised O, and though I've discovered I can make my own dots, I like the pre-done ones better.
DC, what are the big lugs that are on the roof?
This right here?
No.
Oh,
all the
these
way,
on
yeah,
the end?
that.
Those
What
are
are
light
they?
boxes.
Light boxes.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Red actually did it so his is illuminated, so you got lights there on either end.
Okay.
And I believe they change, don't they, Red, depending on direction of the car?
Yes, I would. There's no way I would know that because I think the standard procedure was they were red globes in the lanterns.
Okay.
That's what I assumed.
Okay.
The protection is to the rear of the train.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, because if you used the clear lenses, you might mistake it for the front of a train.
They probably had clear lenses in the direction of travel and red lenses for the rear.
I would imagine they probably only put one at the rear.
Right.
Because only occasionally do I see, matter of fact, usually if an engine was going to be used in backing up, they took the lantern off the front and put it on the tender at the back. I have several shots of those in Alexandria.
Christopher, the tops of these are open, so they could just put the lamp in, take it
Right.
out. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be that hard to switch it from one end to the other.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd imagine they'd be a little hesitant about that because Mosby might see the light.
Well.
Okay.
That's actually what brought me to the club. I haven't made it yet, but one of the first things I did is I wrote and asked, and I can't remember who it was, but someone actually responded on the blog. They read the regulations from the manual, and I forget which railroad, about which the lights were, but it's been so long I can't remember which. I got it saved in my emails, but somewhere in the back.
DC, sometime could you go over the U.S. military railroad rule book you have?
I have to find it. I got a lot of stuff packed up at the moment.
Yeah, I have shots of it, but you're the owner of the book.
I thought Bernie had a
I know
copy of
Paul
that.
and I have probably transcribed it at least twice. But
I sent, I had one point, I don't know where they are, again, don't know where they are now. I had photocopied it, and I think I posted online. I think I posted it to the group, and I sent Bernie copies of it.
I shot it on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah. You brought it to Atlanta when we had our meeting there, and I took pictures of every page and typed the sucker in a word processing program and made a pretty good replica of the thing, which I have printed out and at the actual size, but I don't have the fancy covers. Yeah, his Civil War rule book is in much better shape than my 1901 Santa Fe rule book.
Huh.
Yeah, it looks almost unused.
I wonder how that descended to the 21st century.
Somebody hung
Just a
on
little
to it.
pocketbook. Yeah.
You know, it's about what, that big.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about that thick.
Right.
So it's.
I was wondering how big.
And somebody was probably going to throw it out, or someone pulled it out of somebody's attic, and you know, one of these two guys in a truck decided, oh, I might be able to make some money on this, and they certainly did.
Yeah, on the displays that I've got that I take to the National Convention, I have on some of the panels quotes from that thing.
Mm.
I keep hoping I'll get somebody from the operations sector, ops thing, to come look at it, and get into a discussion. But they've never bitten.
I think it was Don that found the. It wasn't as in-depth set of rules, but it had the rules for conductor, I think, and engineer. and it seemed like it was about an 8.5 by 11 size versus that little compact version that of the rules for the U.S. Don, you remember that those rules that you had a copy of? You sent me. I sent to Charlie and
Was that
LeBron.
the WNA rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 1859. They were about 7 by 9, something like that.
Oh, they were. Okay.
Not quite a full sheet.
Right.
Yeah, I have I think someplace a archived digital copy of the Pincy rules from the 1850s, and it was a considerably larger rule book than the U.S. Military Railroad.
Yeah. Wow. Well, guys, it looks like we're coming up to about that time.
One
So,
question.
yeah, Rhett.
I just remembered that stack company is Comstock.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, Comstock and something else.
I think it's Comstock Car Shops, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. There you go, LeBron.
Okay, is that an online company or is that a Shapeways company?
No, it's an it's a manufacturing company that's not Shapeways.
Right.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
They're cast. These are cast almost pewter.
Right.
All right, gentlemen, I know it's not in our genre, but does anyone know of anyone that might want that engine that I have?
You know what?
Could I ship
can
it to
check with my
someone?
club, Chris. Let me check with the guys in my club. They might want. They might know. I'll let you know about
All
it.
right, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that would actually be in their time period.
Right.
So yeah, if they want it, they can have it.
Okay. Let's see, the next time we meet, we will be into our annual remote getaway. And I sent an agenda. So yeah, it'd be nice. Charlie's going to have to help me out here, but I'm trying to figure out a way where we could do a group dinner virtually.
Charlie can send us some barbecue.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But anybody have any thoughts that you might want to share for that? Because I gave you a fairly tight outline of the weekend. So if that works for you guys, I guess the only thing I'll do is I'll just follow up with an email to make sure that whoever's presenting is set, because we have that guy Eric from the UK. We have I forget, is it Charles? Whatever. Yeah, that's going to do the virtual. Yeah, Rhett.
I think there should be a period where everybody that's got a layout takes 7 or 8 minutes to just show the best shots of their layout.
Okay.
All of us.
Like a short show and tell period.
Excuse me?
A short
show and tell period.
Yeah, definitely, because it can get really long.
Right. Yeah, I think like 2-3 minutes a piece is about right. That's cool.
I just want to see the layout, see what everybody's doing, seeing what I can steal. Oh.
Been hanging around Tom too long.
Oh, I see that, man. I got to get Christina back on it, because when Christina was here, you were very polite. It was very cool. Now that she's gone, it's like no holds barred. I get it. That's cool. Good.
Well, she told us you were paying her to keep her away.